Hey there, guys. How are you guys doing? This is Ice9, and finally getting around to doing a Madden Mobile video for the new season, the fourth season, 2017 to 18 season, and finally getting around to do a video. And my reasons for not doing videos as frequently as I have in the past are it really comes down to one thing. One thing comes to my mind. That is, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. As you guys can see, I'm still playing, still competing in a league. We come to play MMO. We're all full of 32 players. We do have a feeder, which is we come to play 2 MMO, which you could find on there. Not a lot going on in the feeder right now, but we are all full in the main league. So the main thing, though, with me not doing videos at this time, first of all, and really foremost, I don't think taking the whole game into account and taking a step back and looking at the whole thing, that the game is an improvement over last year as far as I'm concerned. There are a lot of new features. There are a lot of very cool things that go along with the game. But along with that, as has been the tendency with EA year after year after year, this game has gotten a little bit more pay to play or pay to win, if you will. Now, it's not totally that way. The biggest factor is still skill. It's still your ability to grind the game and learn the plays and play different modes and play head to head and learn different strategies and ways to play and all those types of things. That's still the biggest factor in this game. So when I say that it has become more pay to win, this is only really as a generality that I'm saying that. So it's definitely not the total case. And for people who like this game and enjoy it just the way it is and enjoy the changes, I could certainly understand that. From my point of view, with some of the changes, a lot of changes that happened last year, I do think that looking at all 4 years, and I have played all 4 years of this game now, that last year was probably the most radical shift in gameplay from the previous 2 years. And even though this year we have all the new things, we have the trained player features that we could use, and we have all the different things that we could do. You could basically take your favorite player and train him up, and that's a really cool feature when you look at it on the face of it. But when you look at the totality of the whole game now, it is increasingly pay to win, and there are various reasons why. I'll go into some of the features of the game. I really don't have a lot in the way of coin-making strategies at this point. And the reason I'm not doing videos that much, I don't want all my videos to be one just big critique on EA and what they've done. The way that I see it, I'm competing, playing in a league, we're going along with that. There's no reason to sit there and really constantly complain about something. If you don't like something that much, then just don't play it. And it may reach that point with me. And, it got pretty close to that point at the end of last year. With my role in my league now as an admin now, there's been, less responsibility put on me. So I'm able to sit back at least a little bit and enjoy playing a little bit. It's not as much work. Of course, the game is still a huge grind and things of that nature. But here, just to illustrate, some of the things that's wrong with this game from my point of view. I've talked last season comparing Madden Mobile to other games that I've played on a competitive level. Most of those games that I have played on a competitive level have been first-person shooters. So these are games like COD 4, going all the way back to Quake 2 and 3, Those are the majority of the games that I've played competitively, and I played all those at a fairly high level. At least Quake 3 and COD 4. Quake 2 I played online, but that was really when I was kind of a new player back in the late 90s playing that particular video game. So I've played video games a long time, and of course, games have changed a lot. Here we are on a mobile app, recording a video that would have been impossible to record really well on a PC a decade or more ago. Certainly 15, 20 years ago, it was very difficult to record a video while you were playing a game. So technology has come a long way, no doubt about that. Along with the technology, the business model has gotten substantially different on these games. This is, of course, what we call a freemium game. There is no charge to download it or play it per se. Where EA makes their money is by people buying packs and, buying Madden Cash for stamina refills and things of that nature. Now, I've complained a lot in the past about how expensive it really is to play a game like this. And there's no doubt about it. You are going to spend time, or you are going to spend money, or you're going to spend both. That's just the way it is. This year, it leans a little bit towards money in terms of spending real money. A lot of the premium packs in the game are Madden Cash only. You can't use in-game currency that you earn out of the game. Also, along with that, in-game currency is harder to come by in some ways because a lot of the players are randomly, and items are randomly non-auctionable items. So EA has continued that particular unpopular thing from last year, and we know why they do it. They're trying to control the economy, starve the economy a little bit, and force players to want to spend money more, and that's really what it's all about. So I could go into the various programs and show you how that is. I think it is pretty self-evident for anybody who really wants to look at the game and who does have the perspective of playing all 4 years. There are definitely some improvements in this game this year in terms of training players. It's an interesting wrinkle. It allows you to do a lot of things, even though there are a lot of limitations on training, and there's a lot of things the way that EA's got it set up that it's difficult to do. But in some ways, there are a lot of things that you could earn in the game just by playing too. So there's something to be said for the grinders and for doing that. Anything from, working live events and working on items in your locker room to get free packs in the morning, or token boosters and working live events with stamina refills. All those things are also possible. But just as an example of some of the changes that they've made that shows their greed, in my opinion, a little bit. We're going to go to game plans, and we know that game plans are hugely important. Now in this game, no longer can you simply unlock the play by progression and also the counter. We're going back 2 years now. That's long gone. Now we have game plans. And they have various sets for getting game plans and live events that are frequently going on for this. Well, I have played these a lot. And as we could see, so I've done the silver game plan set 35 times. Even to get one bronze item, which last year you pretty much got just by playing one through, regardless. And there was no different stamina items that correlate to more points or to better items, unlike this year. But regardless, if you play the full 40 stamina event, about the best you're going to get from what I've seen is maybe you will get one bronze game plan item along with some points. That is still not, more often than not, you're just going to get points. You're just going to get more points for the higher stamina type events. So those are a little bit better in some ways, depending on how you look at it. But really, it costs more in stamina to get these items in the first place, and then you got to level it up to the gold, which I've done that 11 times. And then you go up to the elites. At this point, they really haven't had much in the way of the game plan in terms of the counter unit. They don't have a defensive unit per se that's very good. The two available, one by leveling up and the one by the kickoff, which is not great as well, not worth all the effort for that, although it's too late at this point if you've done that. It's one of the only two that's available. The team defensive units from last year are not really in the game at this point. So assumedly at some time they're going to spring live events or some kind of promo that are going to have better defensive units as part of it. And then the other wrinkle that they've had, and there's actually a lot of good to this, is that we have the coaches and the locker items. So right now this is just a default and it costs coins every time that you switch them, but you have a variety of locker room items that you could use. Anything from coin boosters to these ticket boosters for the weekend tournaments. And then there's the GOAT and 24/7 stamina boosters, some gold, a war room token boosters for game plan items, and the daily packs of various kinds. And these can level up so the rewards get better and better. So there is incentive to keep on playing these live events, and there is something for the grinder in this game, that is for sure. There is definitely a lot more for the people who spend money, though. And the one thing you got to say about that is, once again, and I've said this many times before, I'm aware that EA is a business, and I totally appreciate their desire to make money off of this game. I will say, in terms of value, from the consumer point of view, I'm still playing for whatever reason, right? It's a mobile game. It's convenient. I'm on the go a lot. It's a multiplayer game, which, brings up competitive and community type aspects. You play with a league, a group of people. You want to compete. You want your team to be better. So all those types of things. But that said, EA's greed just creeps into the game a little bit more every year, and it does get to the point where it is a honest question to ask at how much is this game pay to win. And what I would say is skill still matters more, and you can grind the game, not spend any money, and still do well if you're willing to spend the time. You will spend quite a bit of time if you want to get any good at this game at all comparatively to everybody else that's playing. It's going to take some time to work on your team and work on your plays and just get better and things of that nature. But the way the game is right now, with the way overall and how important it is in the game now, it is tilted it just a little bit more. A couple major changes have really taken effect on this, okay? So head-to-head used to be a mode where overalls were matched up against each other. And this year, the searching is much better. So one of my biggest complaints about last year is that, you're all of a sudden nailed with a dozen or more head-to-head games in one night and spending the majority of your stamina that you'd like to be using on something else, just playing drives, and not let alone the time. So that's good. Now you can play only when you want to. When you find an opponent, somebody else finds an opponent, you'll match up and you'll get 24 hours to play. That is definitely an improvement. What is not as an improvement, though, is that overalls are not matched. So, for example, if there's somebody who is an elite category 3 and it resets every month now to get more collectibles, to get the mobile master, which is 100 Tom Brady. So in order to get that, you have to keep playing head to head, and you can never really sit back on that. You've got to make at least 10 million fans a month. Now that's not a problem. I had 290 million fans last year, and from what I've seen, the way you earn fans is fairly similar. You can pick the difficulty level that you want to play on. Sometimes I'll go on if I've got a daily challenge where I need to rush for 50 yards like last night. I'll just play rookie, just because I want to pick that up to pick up the extra tickets and complete it. It's harder to run on all Madden. Usually these days I'm playing on all pro or all Madden, depending on how I feel. So that's very good. But not matching up overalls, though, and just simply throwing everybody into one giant pool is a change. It's definitely different. And with how vital overall is in the game now, with counter severity and just the way the teams play in general, it's just very much like, okay, so if you're an 80 or 85 overall and you're trying to build your team and you're not spending money, and if you end up going up against 103 overall, for example, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage. Now, you could be the most skilled guy in the world. You could be like Adam from Systematic Front or something like that and just be able to overcome those high overalls. There's an example of a player who does prove that the game is not totally pay to win, that's for sure. But it definitely is an advantage for the higher overall. And I've heard people complain about in the past about the nerf. I think the nerf, and especially this year, especially with the numbers of leagues that we've played in the different variety from leagues where you don't even know what they're doing. Are they just collecting one collectible for Brady per match and just sitting there and not even playing? They're just farming leagues maybe, or really competitive leagues. And there's such a variety in the defenses. Last league, the league that we had before this one, and we're playing Show Us Your TDs, So these guys are fairly well ranked, pretty comparable to us. And they've got some tough teams on here. I got to play NOLA here. And one thing that I have noticed is there is a huge difference, even despite counters, and if the counters are fire or not, which at this point of the year, it's pretty tame because there's no really good defensive units and there's no ultimate freeze soft counters like last year. So, and another improvement that they have made, along with the training system, which definitely has some advantages and some interesting things about it as opposed to previous years. Another good thing that they've done is there's better plays in the game this year, is one thing that I would say. There's less junky plays. They've added some really, really good plays that are very powerful. But one thing that I've noticed, so I played a 77 defense yesterday and playing this, 100 defense today. The way the game plays is totally different. Totally different. And the one thing about it, and I'll go into my team and my players, but you can see this incompletion right there, incompletion on flare, running, and then Y stick, another incompletion, and flare, another incompletion, and then, I get, so I'm repeating some plays, and, I'm able to get something out of this counter that fired. And, so just really, really tough. And curls here did not get a good look at all at that. But we could see there's just a lot of incompletions here. And this one killed the drive, had to kick a field goal. But the majority of these were not throw it up for grabs, ill-advised passes. That was, a lot of it single coverage, the safety on his back. And once the tight end got hit, they just dropped the ball. So that happens a lot when you're playing higher overall teams. That does happen quite a bit. And then with this one, the softies hit on me. looking more like a drive from last year, but I was able to get a big play on spread FL drag and score on that last drive. But definitely not easy, and definitely more incompletions. And it's definitely, my message is, it's definitely tougher to play higher overall teams. Now, some people, when they get a high overall team that they've spent all kinds of money, either through Madden Cash or by buying coins, they have a better overall team. They expect when they have that better overall team, that should be able to stop anybody at a lower overall. That's always been the case, that people have felt that. The last couple years since the March update, certainly last year and going on to this year, that has been more the case. There's been less of a nerf. Defenses are playing tougher. When you're playing 100 defense, you know what you're playing. There's no doubt about that. It is definitely a lot tougher, and it's noticeable. So in that way, the team and overall has overshadowed skill to a certain extent. Now, skill is still skill. There are people who, always throw to the right man, who make the right reads. And if you play better, ultimately, people who know how to play, they are going to be rewarded in this game. But it is less so. And when you're playing, when you're not spending the money, and when you have a lower overall team, I think for the average player, it's a more frustrating experience. Because in head-to-head, when you're going through head-to-head and you're trying to work up levels, and all of a sudden you're just thrown against 103 overall, it's frustrating. Then when you get somebody and say you're an 85 overall and you're playing suddenly an 80 overall or a 78 overall, brand new player or something, then it's quite a bit easier for you, but it still is in the back of at least my mind that the whole thing is skewed, that it's not really matching up players at the same levels, given how important overall is. So with the various things, and we'll go into team here a little bit, I'm not going to go through my game plan or anything like that. But one of the big important things, and there's a lot of plays that are still in the game from last year and have been in multiple years. But I throw to the tight end a lot. So I've got this Ingram card, and I've definitely trained him up pretty good. Now, still, as a matter of course, even though the stats are all really good, by this time of the year, I had no one like this on my team last year, that's for sure. And they've uncapped the stats from 99 up. Even though it doesn't translate to gameplay, it still helps overall, which, as I've mentioned, is all important. But this Ingram card right here, this is the card that is basically dropping all these balls against these high overall teams. So I don't know what his CIT number trained up to. And he definitely makes some good plays. And on that spread FL drag, he definitely broke one, and his speed allowed him to do that. Once he got back, the safety came up, and it was over. At that point, once that tight end gets to the outside on that play, if the safety comes up, that play is over. You're not catching this guy. But definitely drops a lot of balls in traffic, that is for sure. Now, good thing about it, my man Barry's back this year. You can see that I've got him. We've got small boosters in the game so far this year, but a totally different system with the training in terms of building up players. It's not as much dependent on boosters like the boss program last year, where you get a bunch of bosses and they all mutually boost each other and you get a 112 overall team. It's going to work a little bit different this year, but I guess the cap is 125 for this year. So the one thing, of course, about it is this Barry card here is a base 91 for this GOAT card, and so he caps out at 111. So hopefully they come out with a better Barry card. That's one thing I'd like to see. But one thing I will say is this card is already in September, better than the Gold Medal Master from 2 years ago. It's better stats, even boosted. Strength is a little bit higher. Everything else boosts up pretty well. Agility is not quite up there yet, but by the time he gets up to a 111, all the stats are going to be extremely, extremely high on this card. And then there's a Bo Jackson card too. I think that for a lot of people, that Bo Jackson card might be a little bit better than the Barry card, just because it's a little stronger with comparable speed and a little better catch. Also, a taller player means he's going to be a better receiver than Barry, but you know, as you guys know, anybody who watches my videos knows that I'm a huge Barry Sanders fan, so I'm going to run with Barry. And then I went with a pure fullback, and we just got the Tier 0, I guess they call it, Elliott card in 88, and I readily used him. Well, I waited a little bit, but I decided rather than go with, the 3 cards, and that in here, we'll go back to league here, and then we'll go back into the team a little bit. So rather than really focus on these cards, and this Elliott card, this is more of an extension of last year, where the tier players, the league players, are not especially great. You could train them up, which is the great thing about it, and you could do more than let sit on the bench because, they're non-auctionable items. So you could use them for training. That's exactly what I did with Elliott. Now, these stacked players, they all mutually boost each other 1 overall. But really, when you look at a card like this Elliott card, an 88 card, which is a fairly high overall at this point in the year, with 84 speed, 74 strength, 70 catch, is hard to boost up to high levels. There are other gold players and definitely some elites out there that you could boost up. By the time they get up in the mid 90s, they're going to be in the mid to upper 90s in speed, which is a very important stat for a halfback, and better stats all the way around. So the stats aren't particularly good on this card, so I used them as points. If they come out with a master set later that requires all 3, oh well, that'll be on me. But I used them to train really at this point. And then so I've gone into a lot of my gripes on the game this year. And there's one particular gripe that I have, and I have a huge problem with this in the way that they did it suddenly, and that is the GOAT program. Now, when the GOAT program came out a couple weeks into the game, my man Barry Sanders is there. That's obviously awesome for me, who's a huge fan, that I could get my favorite player of all time on my team really early on. And just by spending money, I spent $100 for the bundle that day, and I got Barry on my team. The bad side of it was where there were all these set players, Reggie White, Ronnie Lott, Ray Lewis. There were a lot of cards that you could do by getting the live events, which is good for the grinders, for the people maybe not spending a lot of money or who maybe want to spend it on stamina refills. Here, let me get through all of this. So they get these GOAT medals, and then they get these players, Munoz, that was another one. And then you can improve them from 83 to 88s, and then you could obviously train them up from there, depending on what you're doing. By going from 83 to 88, even though it took 80 of these GOAT medals, it gave you a higher cap. So instead of a max of 103, it'd be a max 108 player, which increases the shelf life of the player over the years, assumedly. So that was a good thing. There was no date or no clock ticking on that set. And maybe they added one at some point, and I just didn't notice. But one day the GOATs were just gone. And it was a week later, and they had these fragments. Okay, so, I went in and I spent coins on any number of things for this promo. I went and got the Barry card. I did a bunch of the sets. Was not able to do Reggie White, but I did a lot of the sets. But one of the things about it here, and we'll just go, actually, it's easiest to see in the locker room. I went and got this time booster, and paid whatever it was, 10, $30 for the pack that had both these things. And now those are totally useless 1 week in. Not only that, the players I was working on, I can no longer work on because there was no date of expiration, even letting me know about the sets that they were going to expire. And all of a sudden they were just kind of gone. And there probably was forewarning that I just didn't see. But I thought it was going to go on for some time, the GOAT event. And all of a sudden it was gone. So basically, when you look at it, at me, who's somebody who's willing to spend money in the game, if I think I'm going to get the benefit out of it and be able to have fun with it and get some players that I'd really like, or etc. But one of the things about that, $100 for a 91 overall player, even if it's my favorite player of all time, that's a good chunk of change to spend. One of the things that they had, though, is, okay, so they've got these fragments. I had 22 of them. 25 of them would either another GOAT, one of the 91 GOATs with the boost, random. And, that was within one pay period. I was not able to even go from another pay period to spend. I was fully prepared to spend $30 on 3 GOAT packs, so I could get another one of those cards. Nope, couldn't do it. Set was already gone. Why? That I don't understand. If you want to reward the grinders, let them work on the GOATs. There's already a lot of disparity between overalls and teams at this particular point in time. It really does. First of all, it sucks because all those GOAT fragments ended up being nothing for me. So it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. 1 week and it's gone with no real announcement that I caught about it. So not only does that suck, and it strikes me as, wow, all this money I spent, it was good for a week, with the time booster and the token booster and all that. It was good for a week. Get what you can out of it, and then we're going to pull out the rug out from under you. That does not reward the grinders who really needed to work on the GOAT events over time and try to get their teams up to some kind of parity with the people who spend lots of money at this game. They took away that opportunity. And I do think it was wrong. I do think it was wrong. And I do think that, while money should count for something in a lot of aspects of life, certainly, at this point, when it takes over a little bit too much, it delegitimizes competition to a certain extent. Sure, we all enjoy the dream team, for example, of 92, and, Americans, obviously, the sport where basketball is most popular, and we have really a lot of great basketball players. Not a monopoly on it, and there's been better international basketball players who have come out, but we've had a lot of great basketball players. But we also know that the American training program is also a huge deal, and also allowing professionals who really get paid millions of dollars for doing what they do, playing on an Olympic level, is a little bit of an advantage. But that still is humans playing against each other. They're all playing with the regulation basketball, so they're all playing on rims that are the same height. That is not that way in this game, and it does delegitimize it as a form of competition a little bit. And having no real way of capping people who are willing to spend anything, either by buying coins or by buying Madden Cash and doing whatever, by not limiting the overall initially in the game, and by forcing everybody to play each other no matter the overall, and things like head-to-head, it has not been a step forward, in my opinion. It has not been a step forward at all. So that is basically it, guys, and that's a pretty long video as per usual, and thanks for watching.